Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building, lock the door, and turn off all lights. Wait for the all clear from school officials or local authorities.
When I was in 3rd grade, I remember getting called to the front office to be dismissed. I always knew when I would be getting dismissed beforehand, so this caught me off guard. Maybe my mom was going to surprise me with a day off? Anyway, I get about halfway to the office, and my teacher comes up behind me, screaming at the top of her lungs to get back in the classroom now, and grabbed my arm super hard, which I understand now as an adult, and dragged me back into the classroom. I thought I was in trouble. She immediately slammed the door shut behind me and locked it, then flipped the lights off. I'm so very confused. The classroom phone was lying on her desk instead of being hung up on the wall. She whispers into the phone that I'm officially back into the room and in lockdown. Then, an announcement over the school's intercom informs the entire school that they need to be in lockdown and that all the students need to run back to the classrooms. Long story short, some random guy tried to dismiss me from school to kidnap me. We don't know who he was or anything about him. My mother was immediately called to dismiss me after being phoned about the incident. She had to show her license and walk all the way to the classroom to physically walk with me. 3 days after this event had happened on a Friday, we had full photo name tags for any non-student or an adult who wanted to walk through the office doors. You had to give your license, scan a copy of your license, take a current picture to be printed on the temporary badge, then be cleared to enter the actual building by scanning the photo ID temp badge. It makes me sick to think about this incident. I now have a 3-year-old daughter who I am slightly nervous about sending to school in a few years. Fortunately, school security is way more up than how it was back in the 90s when I went to school. So, in 3rd grade, it was a normal day in school. Then, the principal announces that there is an armed individual wearing all black outside of the elementary school. Then, we all hear gunshots outside. I know this because everybody looks around in a panic. So anyway, the teacher leads us to a small room with a vending machine. Then, we hide underneath the desks. We hear more gunshots, though they are much closer now. I gathered enough courage to look outside the window. I see a tall man in black holding a gun. Then my homeroom teacher, and wait a minute, is that blood? A police officer walked into the room where the tall man was and shot him. I looked away for a moment to see if anybody had seen me looking, but nobody saw me. Once I looked back, there was the tall man limping towards us, 2 very dead officers behind him. I hid underneath the desk, scared for my life. I hear heavy, dragging footsteps outside of the door slowly creaking open, and a man walking into the room. He looks under the desks, and I let out one of my ultimate special, screechy, ear-splitting ghost screams, and the man was so startled, he fell back and hit his head off one of the vending machines. That man was a police officer. I looked out the window and realized the 2 police officers were really the armed people in black, and the homeroom teacher was really some 6th grader thinking she was going to be a hero. She died in the hospital. I was in my 5th period biology class. The door to my biology class was outside on the 2nd story, near a bridge that overlooked the senior patio, which was a large outdoor place for students to eat lunch. It was lunchtime for half of the school, so we were able to hear the students talking and laughing. It was a gloomy day, very cloudy and windy. A thunderstorm was approaching, but it didn't start raining yet. Suddenly, the talking and laughing from the lunch patio changed. We heard the students screaming, loudly. My teacher looked out the window, and she saw all of the students who were eating outside running into the gym, which was right next to the lunch patio. Our teacher assumed there must have been a tornado, so she told us to get under our desks and cover our necks. A few seconds later, we heard the intercom turn on. A voice said,
"Code Red,"
and the intercom hung up. Code Red means a lockdown at my school. My teacher had all of us hiding in the corner, out of view from the windows. My teacher had to crawl on her stomach to lock the door, close the blinds, cover the window on the door, and turn the lights off. It was obvious this wasn't just a drill. Most of us were crying. We were terrified. When the school is under Code Red, students aren't allowed to be on their phones, but some students in my class disobeyed the rule. They Googled what was going on. There was a news alert of there being an active shooter at a high school. Our high school. The school was very quiet. It was very eerie. You could hear a pin drop. About 15 minutes after we were put under a lockdown, we heard multiple helicopters flying over the school. All nearby police officers were told to come to the school. The road outside of the school was being closed because parents were lining up around the gates surrounding the school crying for their children. After what seemed like hours of sitting in the silent classroom, our door was broken down. Despite it being locked, men ran in with large guns in their hand, the ones with lasers at the top. It was the SWAT team. My teacher wasn't wearing her school ID that day, so they pinned her to the ground and searched her. The SWAT team told all of my classmates to put our hands on our heads and to not move. They made us get in line, one SWAT member at the front of the line and one at the back. They said something along the lines of,
"We're getting you guys out of here."
And we all ran in a line through the halls as fast as we could, down the stairs and out the main entrance. When we made it to the parking lot, there were tons of police officers and emergency personnel. Parents were still surrounding the gate. It turns out there wasn't actually a shooter. A student at the middle school next door prank called 911 saying that there was a shooter in the cafeteria of my school.